Good morning, everybody. I'm Kara Kane. I'm the Executive Director here at the Fischoff competition. We are so excited for our first and maybe only Juror Insights. We're hoping that we don't have to continue doing this in future years. But on day 2 of the competition is typically when we host our master classes. So I don't know if you have us on gallery view, but Mickey Strabley is here. She's our competition director. She shows you a little view of what it would have looked like if you had checked in over at O'Neill Hall. And so for those juniors that would not be advancing this morning, they would get to have a masterclass with such amazing jurors as Jeff Nelsen and our other jurors. So he actually graciously offered to tell us a little bit about and give us a talk about one of the other things that he is infinitely talented with. So since we aren't able to hand out programs physically, I'm sure you guys know a ton about Jeff, but let me just introduce him to you quickly. He is a self-described, let's see, let me make sure I get this right, Canadian pig farm raised magician horn player.
One of many.
One of many. Yeah, exactly, is what he says. So born to opera singing parents. He is been with the Canadian Brass. Is this your 10th year now?
Going into 11th, I guess.
Oh, 11, okay. He also has played in fantastic orchestras, in Chicago, Cincinnati, Montreal, New York, LA, you name it, he's been there. He's also on the faculty at IU Bloomington at the Jacobs School of Music. And in his spare time, he also runs, founder of Fearless Performances that he also does. And he's done here. He's actually going to jump on another live stream that he does, the Musician Mindset. And in all his spare time, he is a magician. If you haven't checked out, there's a great YouTube clip of you in Chile, is it? Where you do a sort of encore where there's a little bit of flame and him playing this incredible blues piece. And it's just priceless to watch the faces of the musicians in the background as he's playing this. They go from sort of worried what he's doing, and then they're just, oh my gosh, it's hysterical. You need to go look at this. So anyway, I want to turn this over to Jeff, but I just quickly want to mention we have a couple other Fischoff staff here. Gina, our program assistant, Mickey Strabley, our competition director, and Tom Rosenberg, our artistic director. So thank you guys all for being here. Usually, last thing I want to say is our jurors are sort of sequestered far away. So we're so happy that even though we're virtual, you still get to tap into all of this sage advice and wisdom. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Jeff. I'll stop you for sure with maybe 15 minutes left to do questions. Is that enough time, or do you want to leave a little more?
Whatever. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so you guys, if you do have questions, you can use the chat feature if you have them along the way, and then we'll sort of gather them when it's Q&A time. Great, so thank you, Jeff. We're so appreciative.
Yeah, thank you. That's tiring. I've been busy. I hear about all that all at once. But thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and it's so great to be with your incredible competition again. I was a juror. I can't remember when the last time was, but I was leaping at the chance to do it again, because to hear you, all you freaks, amazing musicians with your chamber music, and have the understanding I have, having done it for so long. You guys, just congrats on all your work, and especially the way we did it this year with the videos that you sent in that were just fantastic. So yeah, congrats. I know you're going to hear this all weekend, and get used to it the rest of your lives. Really, it's going to be exhausting. Yeah, really great work. And yeah, nice weekend we have planned. Thanks for keep going and having this continue. So it's really exciting. I am here today and now to talk about something that I've been obsessed with and just ended up calling Fearless Performance. And it's basically based on a small thing in our performance. It's basically, not many people have experienced this, but maybe you have, where you've prepared something and it gets to a certain level, and then you go out to perform it, and it goes not quite as well. Has anyone here ever experienced that? It's really rare, but I think basically every hand goes up all around the world. Yeah, it's a major part of what we're doing. And so the first thing is you're not alone. Everybody experiences it, and I call it the quality gap, basically. And it's the difference between what we can do and what we actually do live, per note, per phrase, per movement, per concert, per week. You can measure it in any time span and quality level. And our goal is to basically make our plan as great as possible and then walk out on stage and execute it as close to our best as possible for as long as possible. Realize we've dipped in quality and get back there over and over and over again. And you guys are doing really well at this. You're at this competition, and I see familiar faces of the videos, and just it's awesome. You're there. And then the greatest thing about music is this will never end. Get to wake up every morning and work on making your plan even better, and then getting closer in your first version, right? It doesn't really matter what we can do. It's only what we can do on our first versions. We will never hear the second version of anything. If you hear your second version. But it's the best thing about music is you get to, the learning curve never hits, you never get to 100%. It's 98% excellence, 98.1, you know. So I'll probably just sit here and say a bunch of true things for an hour and hope that they help you. And I love fielding questions too, so ask whenever. But basically, you know, the learning curve thing is you're learning when you're horrible at something, you can learn really quickly. So you get to get better and see improvements, you know, each day, maybe each hour. But at some point, and at the level you guys are at, that learning curve level's off, and you're at excellence 90% or higher. And now it's all about way more time to see way less improvement. Does that make sense? So that's something you gotta embrace and get to embrace at this wild time of being home so much more and having your schedules freed up a little bit to do more of this work. I get excited and I don't really take a breath when I start talking about all this, so let me know when I can slow down. Yeah, and we're all here to cheer you on with the work that you guys are doing. One of the things I've learned with my students is how hard it is where you are, if you haven't won your first audition, or if your goals are being performers. I assume all of you guys are, that's one of your big goals, is to be professional performers. Is you're at this point where you're really good, but your teachers are telling you you got to be able to do everything, and you got to be able to just be awesome all the time. That's exhausting, and you don't know where that line is yet of hireability, which is all we got to be. I'm a big fan of as much unemotional critique as possible, that it didn't suck, it wasn't good or bad, it was just it's in tune or it's sharp, or you know, it's all this. And I love using a hireability factor, or I guess winning first place is another line, and we're just either enough, not enough, that line, whatever it is. But please remember, you're doing good work. You're at this level. That's fantastic level. You do get it. And now it's just doing more of the same work. Also, sometimes you don't even have to find that new nugget that's going to explode you into overwhelming hireability. You just got to keep doing what you're doing and do it a little bit more, a little bit better. Stay in that practice room. My advice for the practice room work is to do it well. Be in there and do it well, and habits are results. You're not in there to get great and see results all the time, you know, and that's exhausting. That's super emotional, right? If you only think you had a good practice session, if you see results and there's evidence, I'll believe it when I see it, you know, or but I'm much bigger fan of I'll see it when I believe it, and just kind of trusting, diving in there. It's scarier because there's less proof, but the mistake is wanting the proof and wanting to see the results. And I'm finding more than ever with my practicing, I'm 50 now, 50. And when I practice, I'm just in there playing long notes to the tuner, and as pure and as complex as possible. And I just do that a lot. I might do it while watching Walking Dead also, but so I get more done. That's why I do it. But also I get over I see my students operating their instruments too much at times. So having an extra, maybe a little bit of television going on has me creating sound instead of nailing the technician. But if I do that for half an hour or an hour, I end up getting better. Those habits end up getting better. So that's something I'm really excited about with the practicing session. It's kind of weird talking to you guys about this because you're awesome. You sound so good. But anyway, the learning curve work, and that's how we all keep getting better. Yo-Yo Ma has a quality gap. He's talked to me about it. You know, that we all know where we missed the mark of our best, you know, and then there's standards. And for me, that's another unemotional thing, not expectations of my performance. That's emotional and dangerous, has a high potential for failure and sadness and stuff that'll slow us down. But standards are unemotional, and they're that perfect version, or, you know, that doesn't exist, that no human can do. So on that note, back to the topic here, Nelsen, fearless performance, that's one of the reasons why we fear, is the cognitive dissonance, which is just an impressive phrase I need to use since I never finished my bachelor degree. Cognitive dissonance between our need and want to be perfect and the reality that we're never perfect. It's a massive mismatch, right? That we want it to be perfect, but it's a fact that no human has ever played perfectly, right? The computer can look at the greatest performance that's ever happened on Earth and go, you know, and we're like, oh, that was really great. And the computer's like, no, it was horrible. Look at this intonation and the timing's not together and like all. So we're massively imperfect. And the quicker we embrace that, I think the quicker we can embrace opportunities instead of fear making mistakes, because we're surrounded by mistakes. I'm a big fan of sayings, and one of my favorites is find focus in the chaos. I got that from an athlete, actually. It's good athletic. From a guy who runs 100-mile races. Yeah. But you imagine, I one of my friends, the first friend of mine who ran a marathon, and I was just like, I was blown away. And he said, yeah, he heard somewhere that running a marathon is a window to your soul. That you are, and we have this a little bit in this quarantine. We're alone with ourselves more than ever, and we get to look at ourselves and then see our choices, right? So performance is exactly that. It's an immediate playing out of all of our choices up until that moment. And the way I work on it, I will give you some tactics as well today, is what I call the magic line performance method. And basically I do magic as a hobby, as you heard, and I can do a magic trick at some point if I'm not too distracted already for all of you. But magic line between backstage and on stage. And every time we approach this line, we bring every choice we've made our entire lives up to this line and across it. And that can either be a source of more fear or inspiration to clean up our choices and choose better. And it's too late to do it for this performance, the one we're at the magic line for. So this process of, I've built this, just labeled this process in my ways. There's a bunch of systems and process that work for high performance, and mine's one of them, and these are labels I use. You need to find your own labels that, you know, trick your mind into embracing opportunities instead of being right about what's wrong, what could go wrong. I call those the wrong rights. That there's people out there, and if I play really well, I could win this thing. Yeah, you're right, but that's a wrong right to think right before you walk out on stage. That's something to be right about when you're on the couch playing Fortnite. That I'm getting a little stressed here. Oh, okay, I better get up and go practice. Once you're at that line, let go of shoulda, coulda, woulda, and embrace all you got. And now you're going out there to execute, and that's it. That's your gig, is execution. Have I taken a breath yet? Sorry, I'm fitting. It's a 4-day seminar that I'm fitting into our hour here together. Sorry, so much. Okay, and you can ask questions along the way too. That might relieve some of the moments. A friend of mine came to one of my Fearless camps, and he said it's coming to this is like drinking from a fire hose. Kind of all these ideas. I'm sorry. So the magic line. what I found is I got really frustrated with walking on stage optimistic and walking off stage disappointed. And it's the quality gap. And knowing that quality gap's a nice unemotional name for things that could have been better in performance, things that sucked in performance, but things that could be better in performance. The solution-based language, right? That could have been less bad, or could have had more of this or that. So there's a process for me that I learn what I do to myself when I walk. It's the walk that is the big difference. I'll show you if there's, when I'm entering a stage, there are not a lot of differences between practice and performance, but there are a few that are quite important. One of which is you can't go back for notes. You can't. Your timing now is now, because the ensemble is playing as well. In the practice room, you can be listening and you can be deciding, ooh, is that bad enough to stop for? Or is, which all those decisions, that intention and attention can be to those mistakes. But once you cross the magic line into performance, it's now. And my mother, who teaches singing and pig farms, says, if you're listening and the audience is listening, then who's singing? Ooh. So record yourself, learn later. Right, in performance, this massive difference between practice room, listen and decide. But I mean, I'm always taken. I find it interesting on first off lessons or lessons in the fourth year of studying with me. Either way, they'll play something, and after about 4 bars, they clip a note and they stop, or they go back for a note. And I always find it interesting that missed note was bad enough to stop for, but not the 4 bars that they just played with no musical purchase and storytelling and richness and all of that. It's the missed note mistake that, oh, that was bad. But playing without musicality, or just regurgitation, or however that, in those other ways, it falls short. Our critique is usually a technical critique. So my big approach, I have a bunch of 3s. I know I was about to show you 2 versions of planks, sorry. A bunch of just 3 things. And one is the places you can have your mind on, and it's the technician or the how process, and that's the lamest of the 3. But my mother sent me a bunch of jokes, and one was, the last thing I want to do is hurt you, but it's still on my list. So the technician is the lamest of the 3, but it made the list. Nothing happens without technique, but our goals are to get out of that technical pursuit as soon as possible to get into the what. If this is the how, the what are the sounds? What did Mozart mean when he wrote what he wrote? All those sounds and colors and shapes, and you guys are doing really great at that. In listening to these videos, I got washes of colors and unbelievable dynamics and emotional investments in sharing. It's really exciting to hear that. I have a brass quintet out of Canada. They're called Canadian Brass. And I talked to them about, you guys play what's called softly as well. So we're going to try that, I think, the next time as well. Like, not just the louds, but we're going to try to play quietly the way you guys did. Thank you for that new concept. So there's the how, the what, the sounds and all that, and then the greatest thing to work out, but also the greatest place to be focused mentally in performance is the why, the story. Why is that note on beat 1? Why did it go to this change of key? And why is this person playing that versus me? And why do the trumpets always get the melody and all that? Oh wait, no, different talk. Yeah, so that why, storytelling. And then also, why are you on stage? Are you walking on stage to avoid mistakes, regurgitate well, show off what you can do? All these pretty dangerous intentions for walking out on stage versus walking out to revere the music and share this great version of this music, and opportunities, seizing opportunities, right, along the way. And that's, again, an unending pursuit for all of us. So back to practice room and performance, those differences for fearless performance. This is the practice room version. And then here's the onstage version. So yeah, a lot of big differences. Not the only difference is that I walked. Basically, the only physical difference for me. And when I walk, I make choices, and then those choices can change my body, make my mouth go dry or shake or fear a note. All of these things. Yeah, I have missed every single note I've told myself not to miss. Because you breathe differently, you know, all these things, versus looking at that note and going, make this note beautiful. It's the same note, and it's just sitting there waiting to be whatever we make of it with our choices. Yeah, but so both of these versions had the same horn, same intention, same content to nail, but I have found it's the walk where I made a lot of mental mistakes, but the physicality of just walking. So I practiced the walking. That's the Magic Line Performance Method, short version. Practice walking across that line, standing on the backstage version of that line, wherever you put it. And I put it in my kitchen. I just did one just now. I just walked into the room. You can do it anywhere and experience standing backstage and either going, oh, I shoulda, coulda, you know, yes, it'll always be better. You can make it better tomorrow, but right now you're right at the line. Too late for any of that. If you should have practiced more, too bad, too late. You're about to walk on stage. Embrace what you got and let go of the rest, and end up letting go of the rest. I'm really fascinated with that. Letting go also is a lot less of an action than I thought it was. It's actually more of a result. So the three ideas for Fearless Performance is learn, love well, let go. Learn, love well, let go. Over and over and over again. And basically you're learning what to love well, so you end up letting go. But letting go is a result of loving these other things well. Love your audience, love your instrument maker, love your composer, love your colleagues, love the hall, love that it's raining today. Whatever works. Whatever, you know, however creative you want to be, right? And if you want to be a musician, you want to be a creative person. So the more creative you can be to trick yourselves into opportunity seizing. I'm living proof that that works. I quit horn all through high school, came back to it, and I played badly, but I didn't feel bad about playing badly. So I think I learned faster because of that. My self-worth wasn't wrapped up in every note. When I missed every other note, I didn't feel like a bad person. I was like, oh, there's my work. Okay. I felt bad at times, and I still do, but I think I've dealt with it a lot quicker and more efficiently so I could get to the lesson, right? There's no failure in life, just lessons, success and lessons. You either got it and nailed it, or there's a lesson in there somewhere, you know, somewhere along the way. But that time away from the horn, I think, has been really good. And then in my third year of school, I won an audition for fourth horn in Winnipeg Symphony, Winterpeg, minus 40 degrees. Yeah, great inspiration to practice. And it was a one-year contract. So the next year with Montreal Symphony, and that's my sister's favorite orchestra, and I needed to beat her, get in there before she did. So that's when 6 a.m. every day for 3 months, and just, you know, really in there. I watched a movie called Rudy. It was exhausting, and the character, oh yeah, of course, Notre Dame. Sorry. Yeah, yes. Oh. So Rudy, I saw while I was in Winnipeg, and then I just found out about the Montreal audition. And I studied in Montreal, and it was just this, no way. I grew up I don't deserve that, but I guess I'll go for it. I don't know, maybe. I watched Rudy, drove out into the middle of the field, easy to do in Winnipeg, and I just sat there, and I was just, after watching him, the story of the movie is that he wanted to get on the Notre Dame football team, Rudy Rudiger, and it's exhausting. He just keeps going for it, not quite getting there, and he goes to his advisor, his mentor, and he says, you know, what else can I do? And his mentor just keeps saying, have you done everything you possibly can toward your goal? And he just keeps going, no, and he goes back to work, and in the end, I'm not going to tell you, but it's awesome. And there's lots of French horns in the soundtrack, and it's glorious. And so I sat in my car and just went, you know, how much do you know? Are you going to go? Are you doing everything you possibly can towards your goal? And I went home, and I'm sure we've all had this where we okay, I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning every day and take stairs everywhere I go and drink water all day and eat the best fruit of the land and all this. So I set my alarm for 6 a.m. on my what's called a clock radio, and I woke up at 9 o'clock, and so that didn't work out. So I grabbed a post-it note pad and I wrote, "How much do you want it?" on the post-it note and put it on the clock. Set my alarm again that night. Alarm went off and I went to hit snooze, and I looked, and in my own handwriting, there was a little thing, "How much do you want it?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, I wanted enough to get out of bed." And I staggered to the bathroom and I was like, I could go back to bed. No one's up at this hour. And then there was another post-it note on the mirror said, "No, Jeff, go pick up your horn," and I'm like, okay. So I go into the kitchen and on the Xbox controller or whatever, they pick up your horn, So, and that's kind of basically the way I did it, right? You only have to be smarter than yourself. Some people put that bar pretty low and pretty easy to just baby step your way through to the one thing per moment that you got to do. You are not doing this audition or competition. You are picking up your horn and doing one note well, right? I have a productivity guy that explained it really well, that you can never do a project. You can only do enough tasks that end up adding up together to end up completing your project. But all you're ever doing is a task. And that was just nice weight off of having a book of repertoire and all the stuff you guys did, and you memorizing all your stuff, and just awesome. But in any one moment, you're memorizing one phrase, or you're working on one aspect of it. So break those things down to tasks. So those are much more actionable things along the way. I made a Facebook, what are we seeing? Oh, nice. You're just making excuses. Ooh, I am, or we are? Yeah. I love that. What's it going to be? Reasons or results? Well, all those.
That's my son's lock screen on his phone. He's very motivated about basketball, and he's listening to every word you're saying.
Sweet. Yeah, it's identical. Sports, identical.
Absolutely the same. Yep.
Yeah, you guys are all athletes, and all athletes are musicians, and yeah, the training is the same. Magic as well. I having flown around a lot, I had a captive audience, so I'd turn next to the person in the chair next to me and go, "Okay, pick a card," and then I go, "Oh crap, okay, I'll wake you up in an hour and I'll do it again." But when you learn the technique of card magic and everything, that's the technique of basketball or music. You gotta be able to get in there and share it, and be able to, and then to be telling stories or playing, strategy of basketball is still a lot of massive flow and understanding beyond the technique. And magic, way more magical when there's a story to it. Otherwise, it's just a trick. Pick a card. Is this it? That's pretty much all I can do as an amateur magician. But, yeah. And basketball, one of my big, in high school, that's why I quit horn actually, was to play basketball. I'm 6'4". You'd think I would be good at basketball. But I could shoot hoops on the farm, and endlessly. Awesome. Like free throws. And so my first public game, I remember Laura Kalinowski was watching, so I was quite nervous. And, but I drew the foul. I got, so I got up to the free throw line, and I did my cool 3-bounce ritual thing. And yeah, okay. And I went and shot, and the ball barely made it halfway to the hoop. My arm just became jelly because of where my mind went. Like that, it was like, oh, don't mess up. And then the second one probably went off the rim and halfway across the, yeah. So that was beginnings of my huge study of fearless performance, is liking girls and wanting to be perfect, and then basketball and all these different ways. So it all comes down to, when we go into performance, the first mistake we make is deciding this time matters more. Right? And I think if we make room for any time to matter more than any other, I think it's a nice, more of a simple clarity or a sign that we haven't made all the other times matter enough. So yeah, imagine making every note you play be dripping, drenched with musical intention, and your first note of your warm-up or your routine is the greatest sound you can ever do. And if your lips are stiff, it's going to not sound as good as your best note, but your intention is still music. Now you never have to make more music. You never have to play better. Phil Myers, former first horn in the New York Philharmonic, just casually at lunch one day said, "Yeah, I don't go out there to play my best anymore. I just go out there to play like me." It's just genius, and he makes, and he's sitting there with his horn, moo, 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 alone, moo, moo, moo. All of a sudden he hears someone come in. "How's it going?" "Me, my horn, moo, moo, moo." 10 people come in. "Hi." "Me, my horn, moo, moo, moo."
I shared a house with him at the Teton Festival. That was quite an experience.
Wow. Okay, I want to hear those stories. Jeez. Oh yeah, he's got great stories. Did you guys play ping pong? He's an amazing ping pong player. And he's a very large man. Yeah. Yeah. So, and whether there's 2,000 people watching him online, it's just him, his horn, his intention of sharing this music as well as possible. You tell me if you liked it later. I'm busy right now focusing on this thing right here, right now. And that's our gig. That's our job at the time. Remember, the first time I left Canadian Brass was to get married. Second time was we're having kids. So I left the group twice and now I'm back. The kids are old enough and my wife looked at me and said, "It's been great having you home, but I miss missing you. Could you please go back on tour?" So for the first time, after I was with the group for 5 years, then I was doing some recitals and I walked out on stage and I was with Canadian Brass. We do the same program 30, 40 times. We're on stage 100 times a year or whatever. And so we get to know ourselves and get to know how to walk on stage and execute at a high level. And we have 2 hours to make up for any big mistakes as well. Anyway, all these really good gifts of learning. But I walked out for a recital and bowed and then went, sharing the energy with the audience and connecting and everything. And it didn't go quite as well. Luckily, it was at a horn conference for 700 horn players. Good timing. Or that's when I was paying more attention and learned that, wow, Nelsen, you need to step this up. And I realized a couple things, one of which was that recital repertoire, I wasn't playing 30, 40, 50 times a year. But the other thing was that you got to walk out there and say, "Hello, welcome, thank you for coming, bye-bye." And focus 100% on your music. And focus on that energy. It's a wasted mental resources to be wondering what they're thinking and all that stuff in performance. You can be as scared as you want about what they're going to think in preparation. That'll help you practice better and do all that. But once you cross the magic line into performance, some different rules apply. One of which is you can't control perception, you can only control presentation. So be in there and execute, find out later what they thought. You are just wasting mental resources, valuable mental resources. So my next 10 recitals got better and better and better because that was one of the things I just was like, "Great to see you, thanks for coming. Let me know what you thought later. I got to do my job." Execute, share music, collaborate with my colleagues, all those things that serve my job better and better. And find out however you need to be doing that, along the way. One more thing to add to the post-it notes and that system, how much do you want it and all that, where I made a saying and Facebook post that was, success not only comes to those who want it the most, it comes to those who want it the most often. And then it's your definition of success, whether it's lacking mistakes or I think golfers aim for the pinhole in the middle of the hole, not just the hole or not just the green, and basketball. It's that same, and the same with your note going to a tuner. Having said that, I do have my TE tuner set on idiot mode because I think my students might sneak onto my app and set it to pro mode. And then I get somewhere and I'm trying to tune and nothing's in tune. In tears. So I think for me, at least on the horn and intonation, I go to a little bit wider. It can't be 440.000 all day. So again, find focus in the chaos, but I put my notes in tune, and then I pick different priorities. Sometimes it's intonation, sometimes it's purity of sound. That when I'm making the most pure, complex sound, and then I look and it's out of tune, but I've succeeded at making a pure, complex sound, and now I have to move that sound to being in tune as well. So a lot of people, I think, end up building bad habits by making every note be pure and in tune and all the right dynamics and symmetrical phrasing, and pick your priorities in the practice room and do work in different, more specified goals along the way. Sorry, now I'm leaping around more than ever. Sorry, there's some things I wanted to share. And one more thing on standards. This is a friend of mine who was my first music director, Bramwell Tovey. And he music director in Vancouver and formerly in Luxembourg, now in Rhode Island, but connects New York, Phil, and LA and all that stuff. But he was conducting at IU. We had a festival orchestra where the faculty played principal student in the summer, and students played the rest of the orchestra. And he just kind of at one point said, "There are no big jobs for anyone who plays with their legs crossed." Oh. And then he started something else, and everyone, all the faculty was like, yeah, you know. And then I, of course, uncrossed my legs, and no. But I think I've taken that a bit further. That the great lesson in that is that no one plays with their legs crossed in concert. It's just in rehearsals, right? Where it's okay, you know, and rehearsals can be long and all this stuff. But again, how much do you want it? How good can every note be? But if you're playing with your legs crossed, it'll be in rehearsal, which means you have movable standards, and that is super complicated. If you just play every note all the time with, whenever when I played in Montreal, the first horn there said to me, and it stuck, there's no reason why every single time the instrument comes to your face or arms that you are not optimally set for success, whatever that is. You can be an idiot when you're not playing, but as soon as it's coming up every single time, to have this real ritualistic excellence. And I have a lot of my students count out loud before they start, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2. And just to have timing right there, so they never play a note without a sense of timing in their approach, along the way on all that. But anyway, I like that movable standards, that now you never have to make more music, you never have to play better than before, and this time doesn't matter more. When I did an audition at one point, so my system, I'll tell you the story and then I'll show you my Magic Line performance method. But the system is, I have an inspirational sheet backstage, and it has things written on it like they want you to play well. Imagine thinking that backstage right before you're like, they do. They want you to play well. And hopefully when you're in the audience, you want them to play well. And if you don't, that's what's called instant karma. If you're there going, oh, that was bad, I can do that better than you. You have to walk up on stage and think well of your audience, and it's impossible. You will have the audience you are in your mind. So be a great audience member and cheer on everyone else. I'm sure you do that. So, but when you're on stage, oh shoot, really quick, walk out on stage. You're out, inspirational sheet. So your inspirational sheet, they want you to play well. Don't ask, tell, go for death. I watched Rocky right before one audition, so I had written "Yo, Adrian" down the side of my inspirational sheet, whatever works. I have one student who their entire inspirational sheet is pictures of Beyonce, and it works great for him. But anyway, I read the sheet, I walk out on stage, and then I read the sheet again. Even in those 10 seconds, that short little walk, not a lot of opportunity to make things a lot better. Not going to learn the new rhythm, but there's a high opportunity to make things a lot worse in those 10 seconds. So when I get to the stand, I read it again. We are expert doubters. So we can, and you're right, they're just wrong rights for that moment, right? So again, I get to the stand and I read, they want you to play well. Oh yeah, whew. And I play my first, and this happened, then I play something, I play either the first movement of something, and then I take the inspirational sheet out again. And it's just this emotional reset button. And one of the other things on there for auditioning is every excerpt is the only excerpt. I've written every phrase is the only phrase, every movement is the only movement, whatever that is. And now you're never having to make up for a badly played thing because you're present. You're in this note, this phrase. Yeah, every shot is the only shot. Yeah. There's no scoreboard, all yeah. So in one audition, played a few things, and then I went to play the Don Juan horn excerpt. And I missed both the first notes. It was very impressive. And I stopped. And I went, okay, And I took out the inspirational sheet and I read it again. Um, and I watched you play well. Okay, cool. And then I went to the music and I turned the page and I could feel the proctor coming over to me to go, you can't skip that extra, what are you doing? But I turned the page and I turned back to Don Juan and I was like, oh, Don Juan, I love this excerpt. Read the inspirational sheet, and played it. And I ended up, that was in an audition that I did end up winning. So that's something else too, is I have missed notes in every audition I've won. And I've missed notes in every audition that I didn't win too. Okay. But basically, we make that mistake a lot of times, I bet, in auditions where if you stop or you make a few mistakes, if you stop and you're going to play it again, now you make the mistake of going, oh crap, now I really have to nail it. No, you had to nail it the first time. You always had to. But the doubling the standard, doubling the stakes, it's a mistake. There's a saying, what is it? The dice have no memory for streaks. There's a beautiful writing I have in my first performance workbook by a poker player who said, the streak does not exist. It appears and disappears within your head of what you're choosing to keep track of, right? You might be thinking you're doing horribly and someone else might be loving every note, right? You could play the best concert of your life, walk off stage and be told by 10 people how much they hated it. You can play the worst concert of your life ever, walk off on stage and be the greatest hero of the world. So what are we going to stake our emotional choices on and our feelings? And we have to be smart about that and choose wisely, I think. There's a great poem by Rudyard Kipling called If, and it's all these different ifs. And one is, if you can approach both triumph and disaster and treat both these imposters the same. So and I've changed it to, you can approach both success and failure and treat both these imposters the same. When you're down and you're sad and everything, that's real and it's important, and you've come to that, and you got to mourn your losses and be sad for a couple days. Grab a friend and lots of ice cream. Warn your friend that they're coming with you to cry it out. But then you come out more ready to do work. I've done that a ton of times and been sad, and this time, especially at this time with what's going on in our future, it's uncertain. There might be more uncertainty, but maybe not. There's always been a lot of uncertainty. There's a new threat that is this virus and everything, but our lives can still be just as uncertain. So we can find focus in the chaos more than ever. And I think we have time to do that now with what we can dive into as far as our own holistic work, health and awesomeness and opportunity seizing. And I'm not like this all the time. I had maybe too much coffee before I came on this morning, but I get sad and I fear a ton. That's where Fearless Performance came from, was massive fears that I still fear. I still feel that in performance. But it's how long does the fear last? And I have a pretty low tolerance for my fearful choices. So I notice them sooner. That's our big job, I think. There's two approaches to solving performance anxiety or whatever. And one is to just get optimal, and be awesome, be fearless, and walk out on stage and be fearless. And if that was possible, I'd be recommending that. But I personally believe that is, in my experience of both teaching and myself, it's impossible to, what is it? Is not necessarily, there are things more important than the lack, oh shoot, I can't remember the quote. I can usually remember this. That's another quote that I stole, but it's replacing fear, but fear will always be around. There are things more important than the lack of fear. It's choosing things that can help us get beyond fearing fear. That's really not ever going to become a quote or a t-shirt. But that fear is always around us, and it's, we got to learn to respond to it. So we can, just click it and be fearless forever, but that's not a reality. So the other skill we have to be developing is noticing when we are being fearful and replace it and recover as quickly as possible. So my goal is fearless, get my mind in a good place, meditation, what's called sleep, I hear, is a really good idea. Water, all these things. And then stay on things that serve my performance and my audience as long as possible. I have gone 5 seconds in a row sometimes without a fearful thought. It's amazing. And then notice as soon as possible that I'm thinking a fearful thought and my quality is dipping, and then get back to fearless as often. I call it optimal reset. I do 1,000 times per performance. I've done it probably a couple hundred times in this lecture too. This is performance too, and I forget things, or am I really serving these guys with how many tangents I'm going on? But I just keep talking. Yeah, fear is all around us, and
We do actually have about 15 minutes, just so you guys know time-wise, because I know Jeff has to scurry off to another event. But I know he would love questions at some point. You know, one thing that you had a quote that was about, I'm not going to get it. Maybe you can say it again, about success, and the way you reach success is by the frequency that you are successful.
right.
So in my mind, I would love to hear that again. But then also this idea of taking risk and doing things that you're ready for versus, you know, there's sort of things maybe you're not ready to play that excerpt, right? But then how do you get to be ready? How do you take enough risk so then you have the courage to do it when you are? Does that make sense?
Oh, it's a huge topic. Yeah, love it. Yeah,
Anyway,
great
but you
question.
guys, please jump in.
The quote that you were asking for is either only the mediocre are always at their best. Oh, no, wait. If you're frustrated, lower your standards. No, it's success not only comes to those who want it the most, it comes to those who want it the most often. I think is a simple way to do it. Those Post-it notes, and how you made your home and your environment be a funnel through which you are self-put. Everyone else is pretty busy. You got to do this for yourself and be autonomous enough to figure it out and be, you know, going through that. So I think those are the choices of that inspiration, and put yourself, and then put performance on your path as often as possible as well, you know. So the question about, you know, how can you turn risk into opportunity seizing and be able to perform repertoire that you may not think you're ready for. Your teacher might be telling you that, the world might be telling you it's not for you. It's all that scale is pretty arbitrary, and I've been wrong about where I am with music so many times that I've thought I've done horrible, and I listen and it's like, oh, okay, that's pretty good. And just that's so much of evidence that I could be so wrong about myself. So to be more unemotional about it, and the higher ability line and all that, all those kinds of things. But risk is also a choice. And I love the saying, if you want a better life, ask better questions. And I'm not asking if I deserve it. I'm a pig farmer who's playing with Canadian brass. Like I'm just constantly, every audition I won, I was shocked that they picked me. And every audition I didn't win, I'm like, yeah, oh yeah, I knew it. You know, like that's just the way we're trained to be, or whatever, to be modest. I'm also Canadian, so I'm maybe extra at that. Sorry about that. Yeah, I had an idea. I'm trying to remember about going into repertoire that, I mean, whether you deserve it or not, it's up to others. It's not up to us to do that. And I've just been thinking so harshly about my own playing and teaching and all these things. It's the way out of it is to let go and see that self-regard as an imposter, and you know, and the same when I think too much of myself, you know, like there's a poster of me holding a horn. It's just the weirdest thing ever, but it's just a picture of me holding a horn. And we all know those musicians who think they're great people because they're respected for what they do on their instrument, and I think that's just cute. It doesn't make them a great person in any way whatsoever. It can, if they want to share and contribute to society and do those other things that make them great people. But otherwise, they're just great instrumentalists. Let's keep talking to see the rest of the value of what we're bringing. So know that, I think, you guys, when you're hanging out with friends and choosing who you spend your time with. I don't spend my time with a lot of the people I was in school with. It's another thing that you can maybe let go of. Here's my favorite saying when you're having trouble with friends and colleagues. It's, ready? This is going to be great. And I've said this thousands of times now. I just forgot it. It's, they didn't change. You're just learning more about them. And especially chamber music, woo, guys are married, yo. You guys are living together. You know this already. Yep. But, and I left Canadian Brass twice. It was 5 years in the group, then left. And I met a girl and I wanted to get off the road. Meanwhile, I ended up on the road more than ever. We had a 3-year long distance marriage. She was in opera school in Philly and I got this job. Anyway, but yeah. They didn't change, like, oh, and the other one is when you're saying about your colleagues, whatever, I just don't get it. Like, there's this and this. And I like saying, actually, you do get it. It doesn't make sense, but you do get it. Next topic, move on. Talk about something that will contribute and is of value. But yeah, whenever someone's like, I don't get it, and they want to suck more time out of your life by talking about what doesn't make sense, no, you get it. Next topic. It doesn't make sense. They are not making sense right now. They are illogical, and they might not be a colleague for you. And that's fine. There's other, or they are, and it's that risk reward thing. Alex Carr, freak violinist. I had him on my musician mindset last week. He was concertmaster in Concertgebouw Orchestra, and teaches at IU as well. And he's concertmaster in Dallas now. But he had a question about whether to take the gig or not. And you guys are going to have to be figuring this out so you don't have 8 concerts a day. And his measurement is it has to have 2 of the 3 things. And I think it was money was one of them. Money was one of them. And it was money, maybe 3 of 4. Money, location, colleagues, and repertoire. And to figure that out within the ensemble of how it gets a yes. And it has, so you can do a job that has great, well, I guess for you, colleagues isn't in question. You got your set with your ensemble. So it's location, repertoire, and money, and prestige, I guess, of where you're going. But anyway, have these things through which you can decide whether to take the gig or not along the way.
Jeff, we do have one question from Vanessa.
Yeah.
Wondering, she says, hi, Jeff. Actually, Vanessa, do you want to just read it since we have such a small group?
Sure. Well, hi. Thanks for doing this. So basically, I'm just wondering if you have any specific advice for overcoming that feeling of needing to be perfect, specifically when recording solo, like when you're recording for solo competitions and stuff like that.
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Vanessa. Yeah. Pro Tools, just edit, swing at it all day, pinata record until you get yeah, I mean, there's that cognitive dissonance between wanting it to be perfect and the fact that it'll never be perfect. Recording is an interesting thing, especially nowadays as well. There's more people getting their home studios set up and getting better equipment and better software along the way. And then also it's about, what do you mean, and how do you define perfect? Is it note perfect, pitch perfect, or phrase perfect? And, most people don't aim too high and miss. They aim too low and hit. If you're just going for note accuracy, all those things, which you guys are not, what I've heard from you guys. But I move my perfection tendency. I don't use that word. That's the other thing. I'm a big fan of word replacement, word choice. They guide my thinking a lot. So it's simple, creative, emotional. There's a guy named Daniel Pink. Sorry, this is a bit of an aside, but he and my thing's not till 12:30. So if you guys have a little time, but he wrote a book called Drive: The Mysterious Truth About What Motivates Us. And he said that the old paradigm was we did it for the carrot or the stick, to win the prize or avoid the punishment. And this new paradigm that he paints, and other people do, I'm sure, is we did it for these 3 things. For mastery, like why we wake up in the morning, why we practice. For mastery, to get good at something. Meaning, to put our own story and our own vulnerability into that. And autonomy, to be self-sufficient, to be able to do it on our own. And those 3 things are what we're being tested. I mean, what the opportunity is up for us to show in auditions, basketball games, concerts, all these different things is mastery, meaning, and autonomy. And so with that, the mastery and meaning, those things I move to having those things as my successes, and having meaning, and that the symmetry of, I have that symmetry of line is much more important than perfection. And when I'm aiming for that, there's an economics thing that is take care of the pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves. Musical thought dictates technique. It's another one I got from Dale Clevenger, guy that played first horn in Chicago for 48 years and lives around the corner now. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, my perfection is musically based and a simple, obvious musical message. And then with recordings also, there is a little bit of editing that one can do with Logic and all of that. But I just, through all the experience, and I've recorded dozens of albums now and moved all these different things, when I'm trying to be perfect, my musical message gets way smaller. And I have to practice like that as well. So the big thing is when I'm sight reading something, I'm trying to make it the most glorious musical statement ever, and I may miss every other note. But I never not notice when I miss a note. I can not notice when I'm not making an incredible phrase or color. So that's my priority definition of perfection, is sculpting the colors and stories. And then I practice to make those colors and stories accurate. And then I also have a massively crazy way of marking my parts. I use a red pen. Shoot, I don't have one here. An erasable red pen. It erases better than a pencil. It's amazing. I'm the dealer of these red pens at IU. Everyone loves them, and they erase better than they erase better than a pencil. I see that marking way more. And the only way that's useful when I mark my part that much is if every time I'm playing, I'm trying to play my absolute best. So that's my approach. So now when I make a mistake, I mark my part, and it's like, oh, you missed that note. I can be, I missed that note, but I play horn, we missed notes. Oh, that was an anomaly. No, Nelson, focus, play your absolute best. And when I made that little mistake, the next time I'm going to make that mistake is on stage, when I'm 10% focused on the audience or other things. So it does matter. So it's in that autonomous work ethic or whatever of marking my part all along. And when I tell students that, they're like, oh, I'm going to mark every note. And I'm like, yeah, probably for a little while, but your learning is going to go, There's a great graphic I saw that changed my teaching forever. And it has these 3 circles. And the smallest circle is your comfort zone. The next circle is your learning zone. And then the third circle is your panic zone. And I was working on intonation at this point. My sister plays second bassoon in Boston Symphony, and so who knows intonation better than second bassoonist? So I called her, what do you do for intonation? I play with the tuner for half an hour a day, and I make reads. And I'm like, okay, what's the shortcut? Come on. Nope, I play with the tuner. So I was like, I'm getting frustrated and everything. And then I realized, I saw this graphic, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. Comfort zone, learning zone, panic zone. I was skipping my learning zone. I was thinking because I was out of my comfort zone, I was uncomfortable. So I went right to panic, and I was like, oh no, but no way. So when you're uncomfortable, that's awesome. You're out of your comfort zone. Comfort zone's great. Playing Fortnite, actually that's not my comfort zone. My 4-year-old kills me all the time. But in there is great, and spend time there. But when you're out of your comfort zone, don't skip your learning zone and all that. Recording's a little different. The learning zone, you can be creative with your learning zone when you're recording, but still, you can still mark your parts, all that. My approach to practicing is I want to have made all the mistakes I possibly can before I'm on stage or in the recording session, so that I can mark my part and mark all my solutions and be able to lovingly guide myself. And sometimes I have lightning bolts and circles and smiley faces and all these markings to help future me have a small quality gap. It's I have fun with it too, with all the different drawings. So that was a really long answer. Does that make, be creative with your own self-guidance in recording, but let go of perfection. That word has a high potential for destructive emotional connection. Yes.
I want to chip in about perfectionism and all that, which I think is terribly boring, perfectionism.
Nice.
But also, when you perform and you're saying you're never going to be perfect, I can't wait for that one bad note, because then I can go, oh, thank God. Okay, now I
Yeah.
can play that stupid notes out of the way. It's not going to be perfect. I can forget that.
They know I'm human.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and and whoops, oh no, my phone. Sorry. And another thing I do, I think they say you're playing. You go out. It's what you want to do. I want to go play. I don't want to go work. I want to go play, and I feel like I'm doing that when I go out on stage. And the other things that I sometimes do is I imagine there's just one person out there, and they love my playing, and I love them, and I play, and it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, and I forget about everybody else. It's a tunnel directly into that person. And it can really help you take your mind away from all that stuff, and then you get free and you play what people think was a perfect concert, which wasn't. But it felt to them awesome because you're not worrying about what everybody else is thinking, and you're just doing your one thing. It's a tunnel to one person who may or may not even be there. Anyway, little things like that. And that a couple other things. I don't know if Debbie's still there. Debbie Price over there. She's one of the great teachers of how to get people to do their very best
Very kind.
in whatever they're doing. She's an amazing, amazing life and music coach. But also, what you're saying, the harder you work, the luckier you get. It's like you just keep working, and then it'll be your turn one of these times too.
Tom, I would add that what Jeff said about the love, Tom, you and I are on that same page as well with having such an influence of the Cleveland Quartet and Cavani and members like that. And that's the one thing that I think we always come to. If you really love what you're doing, yes, the technique is an essential part of it. You have to love to practice technique too, but always keeping it with an idea of storytelling and engaging and having fun with each other. And it's a balancing act, but that really spoke to me when you brought that up in your conversation.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, Debbie, on what other? I'm sure you're going to share a few more.
Well, it's been really interesting these past few weeks in trying to keep that emotional engagement across the internet in coaching. We're still coaching our groups, and we actually start a program again today. It's called iSTEM Connect, and we have 9 ensembles. Last week, we are probably going to end up with about 11 ensembles by the end of it. And how you instill this idea of, keeping the idea of performance. And it's changing because here we are performing with recordings and not being able to completely engage with each other simultaneously, but through a cappella and some other apps, we're able to engage with each other through the recordings. But all of a sudden, the whole stage presence thing has taken a whole new level. And even with my students who are playing juries from the university I teach at, that they get nervous. They feel a similar nerve. And then Nathan Chan, I don't know if you know the cellist Nathan Chan, he's this really wonderful performer I get to have the privilege to work with. And Nathan was saying that he's almost actually more intensely nervous and has to work through that with recordings because they stay. Different than a live performance. So I think all the things that you've brought up apply equally or maybe even greater to our video performances.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it was neat to watch the Metropolitan Opera when they started doing the movies, and then close-ups. And it just changed opera. Now it's right in your face. And anyway, yeah. But it's just different. It's not worse or better. It's just shifting, and there's more online opportunities now. We got a bigger audience actually if we can figure this out and keep going. And the world needs music more than ever.
We need a genius to come up with a way that we can play at the same time.
Right.
We need the technology, and I feel like it's close. Like it can be done. And one of you out there who's one of these, I know you're all geniuses in so many ways, and or maybe you have a friend who's that's the next thing that we really need. We really need to be able to play at the same time.
Yeah. What I've been doing is duets with my students and different people. And then we do peer performing, which is what I'm going to do in my Fearless camp. I'll talk about that for a sec too. I forgot. But that one person is the leader and the other person gets to play the duet. So I lay it down. I've been doing online lessons for a long time. So I would ask them if they wanted to play along, and then they play along with me, and I either turn my speaker off or I ignore the sound that's coming back. But at the other end, they get the experience of playing along. So my students have been playing duets in that way, where one person lays it down, turns off their speaker or takes off their headphones, and the other person gets to play a duet. And then they take turns and they switch roles. So that has kept the collaboration going a little bit, whereas online stuff. Yeah. And then, how well you simulate that performance is how much you get to learn. I remember some people saying, if I practice walking on stage, what if I don't get nervous? And first time I was asked that, I think I was a little tired, but I just went, well, you don't get to learn today. I don't know. Be more creative and simulate more accurately what your performance situation is and walk into that situation. And then what Tom was saying, playing for that one person, when I do 50 magic lines before an audition, so that my audition is magic line performance number 51, it's just execution, I keep track of for whom I've played my best, and I play for this person on my inspirational sheet, and I have that one person with me wherever I go, and I've had my kids along that way a lot. Remember I was runner-up for Chicago in 2000, same year. Runner-up for LA, Chicago, fourth, low horn positions, and then got Canadian brass all in the same year. And remember before the finals, a really quick story on this audition. I was getting ready for Chicago, and everyone was like, "You don't want to do that audition. They know who they want. They want someone from Chicago and all this." And I just was kind of like, "Okay, are you done? I'm gonna go practice. I'm gonna go be that idiot." And in the finals, it was me and 8 people from Chicago. So either I was the one, they were right, or I was the one non-Chicago idiot who went for it. And my playing changed. I got to know Dale Clevenger. I taught his son now, and now he teaches here. All this stuff happened because I was that idiot that just went for it. The world will tell me if I deserve it. Right before the finals, came down to me and the 2 guys that got the job in the finals. But right before that, I was warming up, getting ready in the hotel, and I looked across the street, and there was a man walking in his suit, carrying his bag for his 9 to 5 Tuesday. And I was like, you get to just go to another day. And for me, it's the day that will decide the rest of my life and all this stuff. For you, it's just Tuesday. For me, okay, Jeff, it's Tuesday for you too, So get over yourself. Just play again. Play your 127th time. And so I wrote also on my inspirational sheet, it's just Tuesday. I think that a lot. And when I'm backstage, I look off somewhere and I think it's Tuesday. It's always Tuesday for me. Yeah, there's all these different tricks you can learn to help yourself stay stupid. Selective naivety, selective stupidity, and end up letting go, right? And loving well what serves what you're doing, Yeah.
Yeah. Jeff, that one thing you said, and I actually write about it in the program book, but the other thing about it is, you cannot control what somebody else is thinking. You can only control what you do on stage. And that includes what you're thinking too, but what yourself is thinking. But I mean, you just have to play. And like I mentioned it in context of this competition, you could have 3 rows of 14 jurors, and you're going to get different results from those 4. They're all going to pick different people that they liked better than the jury that's sitting 2 rows in front of them, and you can't control that, and I remember learning that, going to what I thought was one of the greatest concerts I ever heard by the Guarneri Quartet, and then reading the review in the newspaper and going, how detached they were and how boring it was, and it was like, what? And you just learn that you can only control what you are doing, and the more you worry about what somebody else is thinking about it, the less it's going to work. You just need to go out there and be an artist or be an athlete or whatever you are, or an accountant or whatever. I don't know, but
find focus in the chaos. It's
tunnel
around us.
Tunnel vision, as my son's
Nice
coach says. Tunnel.
Yeah. And good, great is great. It's pretty consistent, you know, for there are people who consistently win auditions, you know, and there's reasons for it, but those are all that data is on recordings. And so you know, really crafting and refining your tastes while having an open mind that person you hate might win against you someday or whatever, you know, and so there's no competition. I think competing lowers your standards. You know, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, Williams sisters, they're not competing. Michael Jordan's putting the ball in the hoop. Like that's all he's doing all day long. And Mozart and Beethoven, you know, and I was shocked when I won my first every audition. Every audition that I won, I was shocked. But I was so busy making it as great as I could be that then I looked around and oh wow, you picked me, but I missed this and this and then no, I'll take the job. But yeah, it's
And auditions are different than concerts too. Like
yeah.
I'm not going to say who this is, but when I was about the age of most of you guys, there is this one violist who I was very good friends with, and this person won like everything, every audition. It's like I would never ever want to play in a chamber music group with this person because I think they're so boring. Their
Yeah.
playing is so perfect and so boring, but they won everything.
Yeah.
You know, good for them, you know.
Yeah.
And it works if you have that mindset that you can. I mean, she, I shouldn't say that, I already blew it, but
Nice.
had that incredible mindset of how to just win an audition. But by winning,
Succeed in that way, yeah.
and you guys all need to know this too. If you don't win an audition, that doesn't mean you aren't awesome, right? I mean, only one person's going to win the audition, and there's a lot of people who are awesome, and you don't know what the committee's looking for. They may want a machine. They may not want someone sitting in the middle of a string section who's got all kinds of passion.
Yeah.
They may want someone who's happy to sit there and just operate their machine perfectly and not be upset by doing that. And then you have other people who just like, I couldn't imagine myself following somebody's Boeings for the rest of my life. So.
Totally. Yeah, so if I used auditions too much as an example, no, it's all concert going and chamber music. And there's these deep thoughts with Jack Handy from Saturday Night Live. And one of them was, I think of this often. What is it? I think the sparrow thinks of the parrot, oh, sure, you can talk, but listen to yourself. All the regurgitators and the people that are nice and sterile and I'm definitely the other side of it, that I missed notes in all my auditions, but I was telling more story and more and you know, diving out there. So that's definitely your goal, especially for chamber music. There's way too many amazing recordings already. Why are we going to come see your group? It's to see your version of this piece.
And the interaction and all that.
Yeah.
There's one other thing you said I think it's so important too. You were talking about choices. And I have this expression, you can have it all as long as you define what all is. If you want to have, you know, a house and with a garden and a fence and play set in the backyard, but you want to live in the middle of Manhattan, you can't have it all, you know. But if you're willing to live in New Jersey, maybe you can, or in South Bend, Indiana, and play string quartets. That's what I did. I made that choice. I'm going to move to South Bend, Indiana because of the repertoire and playing string quartets, and I'm traveling 150 days a year. I can deal with that, or I thought I could. I eventually left it, but I spent 20 years there, and it's a great community and all that, you know. So, but you can learn to have it all if you can define what all
Definition.
is, be comfortable with.
Exactly. Definition of success and being creative with that. And yeah. Oh, yeah. And you guys are at that age now, that stage where you can't do it all. There's people that can do a lot of things all at a really good level. You can't keep doing that. You can, but you'll stay at that level, right? What is it? Jack of all trades, master of none. You know, that you put your time toward all these things. So you gotta say no to some of these things, and saying no to these things is saying yes to you, so that you can put the same amount of time to 10 things or put all that time to 2 or 3 things. You get a lot better. And those are the choices. And you're only frustrated if you're making that mistake of wanting more than is possible. To get doing a bunch of concerts and being able to buy food from money we make because we played music, luckiest people on the planet. And it's worth it. Is what we're all telling you. You know, keep going. And it's so worth it. It's just an amazing dream life. But be appreciative instead of entitled. You know, that we get to do this, get to practice. Yeah, enough times. But I think, gosh, from what I've saw you guys doing, you're right on track. Amazingly, like mind blowing. I was super nervous about who I was picking. I couldn't pick for ranking. I'm like, really? I have to choose. It was, yeah, really exciting state of music making.
Jeff, I wanted to ask real quick. We're running out of time, but you know, we do what Tom had suggested. Yesterday we had actually a watch party of the junior division, and so we had our students. I told them not to talk to each other, rank everything. You know, for that it was the string division, and the 13. I'm like, okay, every single group. I was like, oh, there's so much excitement here. Yeah. There's this. You know, and I don't know what order or what pieces the judges were listening. We were just listening at, you know, as it was straight down. But it came out like all over the place, as it usually does, because, you know, I couldn't get it down. You know, there are 13. I felt there were 13 reasons why 13 of these groups should move on. And, you know, you do get forced into having to make these choices. But I feel like that's such an impossible choice. And thank you for having to do it, because it's really rough. I know.
Yeah. And the where it gets, I think, really difficult is I love this enough, not enough line. It's either enough or not enough. And you guys are all across the enough line. So now it's about style and storytelling and these other things, and keep doing that. That is the discerner. And it's, you know, good enough is the enemy of great. That's the other side of it, you know, so keep going, so that my big goal is to make the decision easy for them. So your performance, okay, well, I want to come to your next concert and I'll bring 10 friends, you know, but then we don't have all the time in the world. So, and Netflix is great. So who else are we going to give some time to? And we're going to discuss that. But the decision is so easy that we're going to go see you guys. Yeah. Oh, really proud of you guys. I haven't met you guys in person, but it's really great work. And this is a unique time, but we can still leverage it to be learning and loving well, and letting go and sharing of ourselves. There's a great TED talk by Brené Brown called The Power of Vulnerability. I think it's one of the top 3 most watched TED talks ever, but in the end, there's a picture of a person's chest, and it just has written across it, I am enough. Whew. It's this huge thing that we are all here to learn. And then we get to learn it through music. Oh, and go be vulnerable and share of ourselves, and then get the critique and keep the stuff that we think serves us. There's a piece of art that I usually share after talking about Fearless Performance and everything. And it was these 5 pieces of art by Brian Andreas, who does Story People. I know a lot of musicians have them on their walls. And I had a student of mine who writes for How to Train Your Dragon, actually, and he wrote a piece for my wife and I, mezzo, soprano, horn, and piano. We've since had it orchestrated, 5 different movements. And the last movement, these words are pretty poignant, and it says, in my dream, the angel shrugged and said, if we fail this time, it will be a failure of imagination. And then she placed the whole world gently in the palm of my hand. You guys, you can do this. Yeah, that just, whoo, it's really, you guys can do this. And you have a big cheering section. Keep doing what you're doing. And, you know, keep getting in your learning zone. And you can panic at times. Come back to learning. I have difficulty with goodbyes, so I'm just going to keep talking until someone cuts me off.
Wow, well,
Thanks for having me.
We were hoping to do a picture of everybody. Will the non-video participants, can we switch you to video? Because we would love to have just at least a photo op of us all being together.
PJ pants are fine. PJ pants.
Yay, ready, all right, smile, ready, 1, 2, 3. Cheese. Fischoff. Oh, yay, good.
Yay.
Jeff, thank you so much. I mean, we could talk about this for hours. And Tom, thank you for being here too. And all of you guys taking time. Hopefully we're not taking you away too much from e-learning for school. You're not missing any coursework, but this is obviously coursework in and of itself. So Jeff, thank you. so
My
much.
pleasure. I have we just finished last night the website for I'm doing a 4-day online fearless performance seminar, May 28th to 31st. And I was talking to you about offering it to you guys at a big discounted rate and all that stuff. So I'll talk about that and giving it to your winners as well. Anyway, so I want to, get that to all of you. I'll talk more about that. But those are the dates if you're more information coming. Yeah.
Amazing.
But that you guys are awesome. So, yeah, I wish we could take more questions. I'm going on to Facebook now on the Canadian Brass Facebook page live. If you have more questions, I'm talking with David Cooper, the new first horn with Chicago, about resilience and how much do you want it and staying in there and all that. If you have time, I know you guys have a really super full weekend. We do. I'm going to be there too. But yeah, thank you guys for making this happen this year. It was a lot to keep going, and yeah, it's so important and so appreciated, the amount of hours you guys have spent on this, performers and Fischoff team. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys.
Yeah. Okay, the world in your hands. Go do it.